coming!
The poor boy!
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most impactful TV character demises that left viewers cheering. Obviously, expect some spoilers ahead.
The longer you wait, harder it'll be for you to get out of here.
Number 30, Jang Deok-su, Squid Game.
숨도 쉬지 말고 숨소리 나면 내가 너 잡으러 간다.
All's fair in love and Squid Game, but even so, this guy crossed a line. Jang Deok-su, also known as Player 101, lied, cheated, stole, and backstabbed his way through every challenge, and it seemed to be working out for him, at least until he double-crossed Player 212.
배신하면 죽인다고 했다.
아이고 무서워라. 우리 한민혜 씨 오늘도 게임 잘해보세요.
After being essentially left for dead in the prior challenge, she decided that if she's going down, she's bringing Deok-su with her.
나 배신하면 죽는다고 했지.
Even if she has to go through a glass pane to do it. Deok-su's end is less a fall from grace and more of a karmic plummet, but quite frankly, we wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Number 29, Janice, Mr. Robot.
I was just explaining that unless you go to work tomorrow and finish cleaning up Santiago's mess, then I'm going to be forced to do something very bad to your mother.
Manipulation, murder, manipulating others to murder. Janice ran the gamut as far as despicable villains are concerned. But from a dark army handler, what else would you expect? Poor Dom got the brunt of it, facing several horrible threats on the lives of her loved ones. Little did Janice know, Dom's a gambler. When betting on her life, Darlene's, and lifelong servitude to the Dark Army, Dom chose none of the above.
You said you would never give up your brother. I simply thought this would be the most expeditious way to break our stalemate. You give us what we want, we'll get Dominique the care she so urgently needs.
Instead, she decided to put a bullet right between Janice's eyes. It's one hell of a cathartic gunshot, if only for the image of the handler finally becoming the handled. Number 28, Bev Keane, Midnight Mass.
And all of the liars, their place will be in the lake that burns.
You're going to need a lot more than thoughts and prayers to get through a sermon with Bev Keane. The sinful zealot used her position in the church to cover up all sorts of nasty happenings, including actual bloodsuckers.
This is verse in the Bible. Just kind of stuck with me. He makes the sunrise on the evil and the good.
So it's only fitting that she burns away in the sunlight while literally digging her own grave. Although from a Mike Flanagan series, we shouldn't even be surprised. This is the same guy who showed that torturing your faithful wife causes you to lose a part of yourself. In Frederick Usher's case, that's no hyperbole. Flanagan knows how to give a villain their comeuppance, that's for sure.
You know, I could have done this just about any way I wanted to. You could have had a heart attack in your car.
Number 27, Mason Verger, Hannibal.
I learned about suffering. Not mine, mind you, but the general conceit.
If you value your life, you should never get on a cannibal's bad side. Then again, something tells us no one shed any tears at Mason Verger's funeral. Putting aside the fact that he raises man-eating pigs, Mason's continued harassment of his sister is simply unforgivable. Luckily, that's where Hannibal Lecter came in.
He's your patient, Doctor. You do what you think is best for him.
One quick spine snap later, Mason's left bedridden in the care of the same sister he once tormented. Karma's great, isn't it? Well, that's not even the end of Mason's penance. A season later, he meets his maker via a particularly nasty run-in with an eel. Yes, it's as gruesome as it sounds, but Mason totally had it coming. Number 26, Charles Pike, The 100.
Kane, Lincoln, Sinclair. As the leaders of this coup, you will pay for your crimes with your lives.
This post-apocalyptic landscape is ruled by one philosophy: blood must have blood. No one enforced that more than Pike, whose approach to peace treaties involved killing any grounder in sight, even Lincoln. As you can imagine, Octavia didn't appreciate losing her beloved, and she said as much with the pointy side of her blade. Ever the pragmatist, though, Octavia used Pike as an extra set of hands during an attempted AI takeover.
Okay, first wave is small. We do this your brother's way. When we let him in, we take him down, we tie him up. Clear?
Then, once he was officially no longer of use to her, she squared up this blood debt the hard way. It's not quite justice for Lincoln, but it's close enough to warrant a few cheers. Number 25, Blue Hawk, The Boys.
Superheroes often have to make, split-second decisions when fighting crime, and I apologize if any of mine have been perceived as being racist.
While apologizing to residents of a black community, Blue Hawk lost his cool and started lashing out at everyone. A-Train is able to stop the rageful Soup from taking a life. Unfortunately, the speedy hero's brother is so severely injured that he loses his ability to walk. Unable to contain his anger, A-Train finds Blue Hawk and takes him on a little jog to get revenge.
Hurt a lot of people. You hurt my brother. Not gonna get away. Not this time.
While we can't show what happens, trust us when we say there isn't much of the racist Soup left. The loathed Madeline was also brutally murdered by a Soup in an instant. However, A-Train's kill is more memorable because he once got away with a similar crime. The speedy hero is ultimately forced to live with the reality of the danger of irresponsible Soups.
Which is why you're gonna love this. Blue Hawk will live on because we gave you his heart.
Number 24, Gregory, The Walking Dead.
I built this place. None of this would exist if it wasn't for me. You're just Rick's lackey.
Walkers have nothing on this guy. Despite being introduced as the leader of the Hilltop community, Gregory's only relevant life skills are groveling, betrayal, and more groveling. He's a spineless snake who would sooner sell out everyone he loves than inconvenience himself. Just ask Negan, or the Hilltop community, or really anyone who's ever had the displeasure of working with him. When Gregory's lack of loyalty finally catches up with him, he tries a different approach: murder. Maggie gave him more chances than he deserved, and he blew every single one of them. Given that trust is the only currency in The Walking Dead, Gregory's execution was long overdue.
What you're doing isn't right. Somebody stop this, please.
Number 23, Lester Nygaard, Fargo.
I think she's in the basement dead, and look, I'm freaking out here. I don't know what to do.
He may be the protagonist, but don't get it wrong. Lester Nygaard is no hero. Sure, we all have bad days, but murdering your wife and framing your brother is more than your average mood swing. On the bright side, Lester does face justice for his crimes, just not in the court of law. After becoming a pathetic crybaby and running from authorities, Lester tries cutting across a frozen lake.
Stop! It's not safe!
Let's just say that a few cracks later, he goes for his last swim, ever. It's so abrupt, it's almost funny. Rest assured, Fargo's version of a life sentence is just as vindicating as the real thing. Number 22, Martin Keamy, Lost.
You see me?
Yeah, I see you.
All right, Mr. Linus, these are my terms. You're gonna step out the front door, put your hands above your head, and you're gonna walk straight to me. Once I have you in my custody, and I promise you that no one else in that house will be harmed.
Fighting over a mystical island is dirty work, but no matter how intense things got, Ben Linus and his rival Charles Widmore always kept their families out of it. Hired mercenary Martin Keamy, however, had a different moral compass. He's a heartless, irredeemable villain who has no qualms shooting Alex Linus in the back of the head just to get a rise out of Ben. Well, Keamy certainly got a reaction, and it came in the form of a very up-close and personal beatdown.
I'm bluffing. Need I remind you of how your daughter looked as she bled out?
Without getting too graphic, it's not a quick death. But after threatening the island and shooting a defenseless girl, Keamy's demise elicits more applause than anything else. Number 21, Gemma Teller Morrow, Sons of Anarchy.
You gotta decide what you want, sweetheart. You hear me? Vulnerability is a liability.
Protecting the Sun's motorcycle club means making tough calls. Calls like going full mob boss and killing your daughter-in-law for being a suspected turncoat. While Gemma was never a very good person to begin with, Tara's murder marked the real point of no return for her. And Sons of Anarchy didn't forget it. In one of the series' greatest scenes, Gemma's own son Jax avenges his wife and ends his mother's blood-soaked reign in one pull of the trigger.
My baby boy. It's time.
It's a bit tragic, a lot gratifying, and sold by the idea that Sons of Anarchy couldn't have ended any other way. Rest in peace, Gemma.
Number 20, Steve Newlin, True Blood. Newlin begins the series as a talented orator and televangelist who openly speaks against the rights of vampires.
You vampires cast the first stone by killing my family. The lines have been drawn. You're either with us or against us.
He's a hateful bigot, a fraud, and the leader of the Soldiers of the Sun, an elite paramilitary group of vampire hunters. He eventually becomes a vampire himself and becomes a subject of study for the vampire police. In retaliation for some major deaths, Eric prevents Steve from drinking some life-saving blood, and he burns to death under direct sunlight while proclaiming his love for Jason. Few things are as narratively satisfying as watching the downfall of a bigot.
I love you. Jason Stackhouse!
Number 19, Dr. Oliver Thredson, American Horror Story, Asylum. Often regarded as one of the best seasons of American Horror Story, Asylum contains a terrific villain in Zachary Quinto's Oliver Thredson.
I think I made a wrong turn.
I see you found my little hobby.
Thredson is a professional psychiatrist who declares Kate Walker insane to frame him as Bloodyface. Thredson is the real Bloodyface who skins his female victims and makes furniture out of their remains. He also torments Lana, resulting in her unwanted son, Johnny Morgan. Morgan himself takes his father's mantle as the second Bloodyface in 2012. Like his father, Morgan meets a satisfying and violent fate, with Lana shooting him in the head. Rewarding revenge also had something to do with it.
I have no use for you anymore. Best you should just be known as my last victim.
Number 18, Richie Aprile, The Sopranos. Nobody really likes Janice Soprano, but she did everyone a major favor by whacking Richie Aprile. The Sopranos is filled with detestable people and hateful villains, and Richie Aprile is certainly one of them. Belligerent from the start, Richie never listens to orders and directly goes against Tony at every turn. He's also incredibly vicious and violent, even by Sopranos standards. Not to mention homophobic towards his own son. In fact, it's his hateful traits that result in his surprising death, as a ticked off and recently punched Janice whacks him during dinner. It wasn't the death we were expecting, but it was wonderfully satisfying nonetheless. Number 17, Jonathan Blackjack Randall, Outlander. This historical drama is based on a series of novels by Diana Gabaldon. She describes her creation of Blackjack Randall as a, quote, sadistic bisexual pervert, and that's really all you need to know.
Get off me, you bastard.
The speech of a lady, the language of a whore.
Played to perfection by Tobias Menzies, Randall has the appearance of a noble British officer, but he's actually a remorseless man with sadistic tendencies. In fact, he seeks sexual gratification by inflicting both physical and spiritual pain on his victims, breaking them down both mentally and physically. Jamie finally got his revenge in the season 3 premiere by stabbing Randall in the gut. He dies holding the man he long tormented, and we were glad to finally see him go. Number 16, Principal Snyder, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Congratulations to the class of 1999. You all proved more or less adequate.
The principal of Sunnydale High School, Snyder often covered up the supernatural goings-on through flimsy excuses and an authoritarian regime. Snyder hates teenagers, despite being a high school principal, and holds the reputation of his high school in greater regard than the health and safety of his students. Put simply, this was everyone's hated principal elevated to a near satiric degree. It was intensely satisfying then to watch him get eaten alive by the ascended mayor. It was hilarious, ridiculous, and even a little shocking, a combination in which Buffy often excelled.
This is not orderly. This is not discipline. You're on my campus, buddy. And when I say I want quiet, I mean it.
Number 15, Ian Reed, Luther. Serving as the primary antagonist of the first season, Ian Reed is a fellow police officer and a close friend of Luther's. However, his mental state collapses following an orchestrated robbery that resulted in numerous deaths. He turns viciously cold-blooded and paranoid, even offing Bill and Sugarman to keep his secret. Reed lost all semblance of sympathy after taking out Luther's wife Zoe and framing him for the death. In the end, Reed allows himself to die at the hands of Alice Morgan, deciding that death was a better outcome than prison. He died on his terms, which was certainly a bit frustrating, but it was still nice getting him out of the picture for good.
Do it! No!
Number 14, Killgrave, Jessica Jones. Despite being a Marvel property, Jessica Jones is a down-to-earth and dramatic glimpse into trauma and PTSD. These themes are mostly traced to antagonist Killgrave, real name Kevin Thompson.
Thompson received mind-controlling powers after being subjected to experiments, and he kept Jessica Jones as his prisoner.
You call making me murder a woman ending roughly?
No, let's be clear. I did not tell you to kill Reva.
What?
If you remember, I said take care of her, not kill her. You chose to punch her.
This horrific experience left Jones a broken woman, and breaking from superhero tradition, she kills Killgrave in cold blood by snapping his neck. It was narratively and personally fulfilling, but it too left a permanent mental stain on Jones, who began to grapple with her murderous intentions. This type of narrative complexity helped make Jessica Jones both a challenging and rewarding experience.
Smile.
Number 13, Yvonne V. Parker, Orange is the New Black. Taking place inside a prison, Orange is the New Black contains its fair share of hateable villains, but none were as bad as V. Serving as the main antagonist of the second season, V is a manipulative sociopath who easily controls others. She gets into a war with Red over the prison's smuggling operation and starts a cult-like family, turning Tasty against Poussey and manipulating Suzanne into doing her violent bidding.
So I'm telling you, do not let her drag you into that shit. She is not your real friend.
Like all the greatest villains, V is smart and hard to beat, but her empire eventually crumbles, and after escaping from the prison, she's run over by a fleeing Rosa in one of the show's most darkly hilarious sequences. She finally got her comeuppance, and it was glorious. Number 12, Arthur Mitchell, Dexter. The fourth season of Dexter is often heralded as its greatest, and John Lithgow's Arthur Mitchell, also known as the Trinity Killer, is its most famous antagonist. Part of that reputation is owing to Lithgow's incredible performance as he masterfully balances everyday normality, remorse, and unhinged psychopathy.
Mom, Becca, me! You're killing us!
And part of it is undoubtedly due to Rita Morgan's death, which is arguably Dexter's most famous and shocking moment. In total, Trinity is attributed to a staggering 279 deaths. In the end, Trinity is bludgeoned with a hammer, and television fulfillingly disposed one of its most depraved characters.
Now it's over.
Number 11, Rosalind Shays, LA Law. An enormous hit throughout the late 80s and early 90s, LA Law was a legal drama that explored many important hot-button issues of the time.
If you believe, like our founding fathers, that government is the responsibility of the governed, and that includes paying for it, then you'll find Upton Weeks guilty.
It's both a thrilling drama in its own right and a glorious glimpse into late 80s America. The show's main antagonist was Rosalind Shays, a money-hungry, controlling, and merciless woman whom audiences loved to hate. And her death, while satisfying, was also unquestionably random. After speaking with Leland, Rosalind turns to enter the elevator, only the elevator isn't there and Rosalind plummets to her death. It was wonderful getting the icy Rosalind out of the picture, but the show soon veered into ridiculous soap opera territory and never quite recovered.
I really don't want to talk about it.
Oh my God!
Number 10, Dr. Robert Romano, ER. Arguably the most famous medical procedural in television history, ER ran for 15 seasons and 331 episodes between 1994 and 2009. For 7 of those seasons, Paul McCrane starred as everyone's favorite grump, Robert Romano.
I'm sorry, I just assumed as a prosthetist that you would have some rudimentary knowledge of medicine.
I have a degree in bioengineering.
Oh, okay. Well, then you have a vague civilian concept of what doctors do. See, I'm what's called a surgeon. That's why I was very specific about needing a Utah arm.
Eventually serving as the chief of staff, Romano is the ultimate boss from hell, known for his unkind comments and relentless sarcasm. Romano loses his arm in a helicopter accident in the 9th season premiere, a moment that skirts the line between shocking and soap opera silliness. And right before he can lodge a complaint against Greg, Romano dies by a falling helicopter. No, seriously, that's how he goes out. It's totally random and completely bizarre, but also undeniably enjoyable. Number 9, Todd Alquist, Breaking Bad.
Just so you know, this isn't personal.
For a good chunk of Breaking Bad's run, the antagonist role is filled by Gus Fring, the methamphetamine magnate who's blown up in a nursing home. Gus was a beloved character, but there's no denying the satisfaction of that death, especially the famous face, or lack thereof, reveal. On the other hand, Todd is a malicious villain who inflicts suffering on Jesse, fraternizes with white supremacists, and worse.
No!
Unlike Gus, viewers desperately wanted to see him go. So it was a welcome surprise when Jesse strangled Todd with his own handcuffs. There's a certain poetic beauty to Jesse taking out Todd with the very symbol of his torment and enslavement. Number 8, Ralph Cifaretto, The Sopranos. As horrible as Richie Aprile was, he has nothing on Ralph Cifaretto. Played by the legendary character actor Joe Pantoliano, Ralph was a psychopath from the start.
What did you say? Whose crew?
You're the boss. You get to put in anybody you want over the crew.
You're a captain, Ralphie, when I say you're a captain.
And I'm gonna turn up my hearing aid so I don't miss it.
Like Richie, he was openly belligerent and often made a public point of antagonizing Tony. But his worst moment came in season 3, when he viciously beat Tracy to death outside the Bing. It's often regarded as one of the darkest moments on The Sopranos, and it permanently altered how audiences viewed Ralph. His surprising death in season 4 was a long time coming, and just as Ralph did to Tracy, Tony beats Ralph to death inside of his own home. It's a brutal fight that proves difficult to watch, but it was also gloriously rewarding and cathartic. Number 7, Ramsay Bolton, Game of Thrones. Few things were as pleasing as seeing Ramsay Bolton tied to a chair and devoured by his own hounds. Ramsay was one of the most sadistic characters on the show, and his crimes are too numerous to count.
Please, no, please don't leave me. Please don't go.
He betrays House Stark and raises Winterfell. He abuses Theon and turns him into the weak and submissive Reek. He forces himself on Sansa Stark in one of the show's most controversial scenes.
You've known Sansa since she was a girl. Now watch her become a woman.
He wipes out his entire family to take control of the North. He toys with Rickon Stark before the arrows get him. Fortunately, the subsequent Battle of the Bastards proves Ramsay's downfall, and he's torn apart by his own bloodthirsty pups. His desperate pleas prove one pleasurable sound. Number 6, George Foyet, Criminal Minds. Arguably the greatest antagonist in Criminal Minds history, the Boston Reaper served as the primary villain of seasons 4 and 5.
Tell me. I'm not telling you anything.
You are not gonna get off that easy.
Real name George Foyet, the Reaper plagued the Boston area throughout the 90s and 2000s. Some of his most prominent victims include his own parents, his girlfriend, and the lead detective studying his case. The Reaper has often been compared to numerous real-life monsters, including the Zodiac, Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader, and David Berkowitz. His gratifying downfall comes at the literal hands of Hotch, who beats the Reaper to death after finding Haley dead.
You got me. I surrender.
Number 5, Viserys Targaryen, Game of Thrones. Before Ramsay Bolton, there was Viserys Targaryen. Viserys was one of the main antagonists of the first season, serving as Daenerys' psychotic and power-hungry older brother.
You dare! You give commands to me! To me! You do not command the dragon. I am Lord of the Seven Kingdoms.
Hoping to reclaim Westeros for the Targaryen name, Viserys orchestrated an army consisting of Khal Drogo and his Dothraki. Viserys was horrible towards Daenerys, even offering her body to Khal Drogo in exchange for his army. But Viserys' ego proves too great, and he drunkenly accosts Drogo. Following some personal threats, Viserys is given a crown of gold, that being hot liquid gold poured over his head. It's both narratively and thematically enticing, with the arrogant Viserys being given the crown he so desperately deserved.
A crown for a king.
Number 4. Agent June Stahl, Sons of Anarchy. Serving as an antagonist for the first 3 seasons, ATF Agent Stahl is tasked with investigating the Sons of Anarchy and their criminal exploits in small-town charming California.
You didn't have to humiliate the guy.
You're the one who got this ball rolling, Sparky. You want to play in my backyard or the cow pastures?
I want to stop Sam Crow.
Good. Then let's catch up.
A very cold individual, Stahl somehow managed to tick off everyone around her with her arrogant personality, flawed investigation, and penchant to cause trouble. For example, she was indirectly responsible for the death of Opie's wife Donna following her flawed attempts to turn Opie against the club. But Opie gets his revenge in one of television's most gratifying sequences, directly referencing Donna's death right before shooting Stahl in the back of the head. Finally, after 3 seasons and lots of complex conniving, Agent Stahl was finished.
This is what she felt.
Number 3. Philip Blake, The Walking Dead.
Take off your shirt, or I'll bring Glenn's hand in here.
This zombie show has long made the argument that humans are more dangerous than the undead, and that theme is perfectly personified through the Governor, also known as Philip Blake. The Governor earned his nickname by leading the fortified town of Woodbury. But don't let that noble distinction fool you. The Governor is an unhinged psycho who commits horrific acts of violence. Even the utopic nature of Woodbury is flawed, and it contains a brutal underbelly overseen by the authoritarian governor. While invading the prison, the governor is stabbed in the back by Michonne, and millions the world over cheered as he lay dying.
He's finally put down by Lily, and The Walking Dead was rid of one of its most hateable villains.
Number 2. Red John, The Mentalist.
Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry?
The Mentalist concerns a fraudulent psychic medium who helps the California Bureau of Investigation solve murders. Said Mentalist is named Patrick Jane, and his wife and daughter died at the hands of Red John. Red John is believed to have taken upwards of 70 lives throughout the southwestern United States and Mexico, and Jane's pursuit of the elusive Red John provides tantalizing mystery for the first 5 seasons of the show. Audiences and Jane eventually learn that Red John is Napa County Sheriff Thomas McAllister, and he's strangled to death by Jane in retaliation for the deaths of his family.
He's sorry that you killed my wife, Angela, and my daughter, Charlotte. Good.
We don't know who was more relieved, the audience or Jane.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Joffrey Baratheon, Game of Thrones. Few television villains are as depraved and unlikable as Joffrey Baratheon. Unlike some other villains on this list, there are absolutely no redeeming qualities about Joffrey. He's simply a pure, unfiltered psychopath who takes pleasure in death, as well as inflicting pain, suffering, and psychological torment.
You will bring her to his chambers when you're finished and show him what you've done.
For 3 seasons, audiences couldn't stand the sight of Joffrey, and he was widely heralded as television's biggest baddie. That is, until he drank a cup of poison in season 4 and died gasping in his mother's arms. The death is horrific and grotesque, but watching Joffrey finally squirm in pain and panic offered a certain kind of satisfaction. Sorry, Cersei, but everyone agreed that your son had to go.
I'd never seen the poison work before. Tell Cersei. I wanted to know it was me.
Which character's death made you jump for joy? Don't be shy, let us know in the comments.
He poisoned my son. Your king.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.